What's going on, everybody? Thank y'all so much for being here. I hope you guys are excited because I know I am. Why? Because this next hour is going to be so jam-packed, full of hope, positivity, optimism, the whole nine, baby. And you got to tell yourself that I will not be denied of the things that I want out of this life, because you are here today being excited. Just as beautiful as it is outside, as beautiful as the individual watching it. Pull up a chair, grab a couple of shots, let your hair down, and kick your shoes off, baby, because we getting ready to kick things over the bang. Let's go!
Joseph Jaffe is not famous. I'm kinda, but I'm Ross, you know. Jaffe is nothing more than a zombie extra, you know. Joseph Jaffe is not famous.
When it comes to chicken, I'm your guy.
Blinking.
I'll have what Joseph's had.
Look, somebody's talking about you.
This is what we call the voice of God.
Popping.
Everybody just gets to focus on you.
Grab me.
Probably not the best thing for an introvert.
I'm asking for you.
Well, I like a good chicken sandwich.
Touch me. Hi, David. Comment.
Oh my God.
Like.
You're actually an identical twin.
Push.
Maybe I'll just ask Julie to talk about what it is to be an identical twin.
Pick me up.
No, you didn't.
Shouting.
Surprise! Jeremiah, just hang on a second. I just got a text.
There's an edit for your new opening, Joseph.
I feel really honored to have been here, man.
By the way, you've done a masterful job. Seriously.
And it was such a joy.
Thanks, Joseph. It's an honor.
Good on you. This was a pleasure.
I mean, you are the prime example of how to pivot in this new environment.
I wish everybody gets an opportunity to interact with Joseph Jaffe.
Who needs Cameo when I've got my own personal Cameo? Well, hello, everybody. It is Monday, June 7th, and it's time for a little bit of Joseph Jaffe. Not famous. Not famous at all. Not even a little bit. But I tell you who is famous. Well, of course, my next guest, the incredible creator that is going to be performing tonight, Stevie Meyer. She's famous. I'm just, well, you know, a little zombie extra. And I'm okay with that. You know why I'm okay with that? I'm okay with that because it is National Chocolate Ice Cream Day. If that isn't reason enough to go to the comfort food and, I don't know, drown your sorrows in a little bit of extra calories, then I don't know what is. But the problem with those calories is that they add up. And I got to tell you, not so happy with this particular trend. I'm not happy with the fact that the weight is coming back and not at the right time. Not at the right time at all. I went from 182.9 to, I don't know, 184 point something, 0.9. 2 pound increase found, according to this, just under 8 pounds May to June. And I need to get in better shape because it is 15 days to heart surgery. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks. Hard to believe. What's also hard to believe is the incredible generosity of the community. Just under $16,000 raised. And so I want to thank again everyone from Bomani X, Jeff Pulver, Zevon Tutu, Beating Heart, to Jay Muna, Chris Brogan, Zevon again, Jeff Wallman, David Libby, Dan Nestle, Le Grand Marquis, who clearly have a heart, VoiceBot, Chris Brogan, John Cotier, Zevon22 twice, Kevin Sturmer, my mom, Jeff Pulver, who bought the full heart, Manif, Heart to Heart, Phelps, the big heart, Soul of Jacob, EH, Jeremiah Yang, Heart of Gold, and then finally, the Big Daddy himself, David Berkowitz. You, my friend, are all heart. And if you want to continue to support myself, the show, and know that you will benefit by getting a whole bunch of benefits from sponsoring the show, cameos, backstage passes, host the show, even have an entire show created for you, for your company, for your employees, for your customers. I will do it for you. Just go to rally.io/creator/Jaffe to find out more. And remember, 10% of all the proceeds will go to the Mitral Foundation. So thank you from the bottom of my from the bottom of my heart. Well, this week, tonight, Nancy Hill, the very famous Nancy Hill. Tomorrow, Rahaf Harfouche, the incredibly famous Rahaf Harfouche. And we will be doing an earlier taping for regulars and Jaffe coin holders. Sean Nason on Wednesday and Margot Bloomstein, or is it Bloomstein, on Thursday. I am excited. How could I not be? Margot just wrote a book called Trustworthy, and I think that's what we're going to be talking about on Thursday. So a lot to look forward to, as we will look forward to, in a short while, Nancy Hill, followed by Stevie Meyer, who is a spoken word artist, and she will be performing 2 of her original pieces that are as yet unnamed or untitled. Well, let's do birthdays. Mr. Scott Kavanaugh, David Rubin, Kevin Bell, Shalom, I get it, Chris Keefe, Tommy Troja, and Joe Dietzel. Hope you guys had a great day on Saturday. On Sunday, Mr. Jeff Marshall, Gillian Wolfson Piha, Eric Levine, or is it Levin, Stephen Tobias, and then finally today, previous guest on the show, Mr. Mark Schaefer. I had to include a couple of screenshots from the show. Mark, my friend, hope you are having a great day. Well, now it's time to talk about a soliloquy that doesn't have anything to do with my guest, but something that very much is in the news and something that you could say piqued my interest. During World War I, on Christmas Eve in 1914, British and German soldiers met in no man's land and exchanged gifts, took photographs, and some played impromptu games of football. The Christmas truce is one of the most famous examples of how there's nothing that quite unites like sport. Over the years, there have been some famous matchups in the game of football, soccer to Americans, such as North versus South Korea as a World Cup qualifier in 2019. Now that match ended thankfully goalless as a 0-0 draw. Or how about Iran beating the United States 2-1 in the FIFA World Cup in 1998? Anything is possible in the world of sport, but when sport, politics, and marketing collide, things get a little trickier. With the Euro 2020 tournament coming up, Ukraine's football team introduced a jersey showing a country map which included Russian-annexed Crimea. To add a bit more fuel to the fire, it includes the slogan, "Glory to Ukraine." Personally, I'm not wading into the politics of the two countries, but I do have to give kudos to the sheer chutzpah of the Ukrainians. This gives new meaning to poking the bear. I also think it's pretty amazing to see such a creative and innovative use case for how apparel design can make such a powerful statement. It's not the first time, of course, from a customer's personalized Nike ID sneakers that read "sweat" and "shop" to Lady Gaga's meat dress to the House Democratic woman wearing white during the State of the Union to MAGA caps themselves. Apparel appears real when there is creativity involved. In many respects, sports has never been a place to inject politics, but that really has changed of late, like after Eric Garner's death, when multiple NBA players expressed their views wearing "I can't breathe" t-shirts during their warm-up. And let's not forget, how could we ever forget, Colin Kaepernick's taking a knee. It appears that all bets are off when it comes to the opportunity to break through the clutter. And as I often say, everything brands and everyone brands. Now let's just hope Ukraine don't end up playing Russia in the knockout stages of Euro 2020. And if that happens, hopefully Ukraine will be wearing their away kit. Veteran of ad agencies in Baltimore, St. Louis, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York, 9+ years as CEO of the 4As, and now founder and CEO of agency consultancy Media Sherpas. It is my next guest, the very, very famous Nancy Hill. Let's bring her on. Nancy, welcome to the show.
Hi, so excited to be here.
I am like a bit starstruck because, you know, the great Nancy Hill, you know, you were a beacon of light, and you still are, when you ran the 4As, which is the preeminent association of advertising agencies representing my industry at the time, and the future of the currency, and the future of advertising, of branding, of creativity. I could go on, I could gush. I will.
It was so much fun doing that job. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of stress and it wasn't always easy, but it was a really great thing to be representing the industry that I grew up in and to be able to give back in some way.
Well, we are going to do a little bit of memory trip down memory lane, but I want to say hello to all of our regulars. We've got Glenn, we've got Anna, we've got Stephen, we've got Bob, who says, I already like this. So clearly he's referring to you, Nancy. Jeffrey Wallman is here. Leslie Laredo is here as well. I love the fact that, and David Libby is here. One of the things that we do now, Nancy, is that any of our regulars and Jaffe coin holders, which is my creator coin, my cryptocurrency, gets an opportunity to actually attend these pre-tapings and interact with my guests. So it's like exclusive access. I mean, I still believe that one of the biggest things that brands can offer their customers and ecosystem is access to executives, access to thought leadership, access to celebrities, or endorsement deals, etc. I even think of the prototypical Anheuser-Busch InBev with all their Super Bowl tickets and assets that they have associated with that buy. And so that's what we're doing here, including Tom Morris, who is our correspondent and regular philosopher. So hello, everybody. Enjoy, have a good conversation in the back channels, but more importantly, I think you're just going to love Nancy. Now, Nancy, before we get into the meat, let's discuss some potatoes, which are some fun facts about you, things that people may not know that will shock them to the core to find out about you, things that are so private and confidential that we of course, I'm just kidding. That's the first fun fact about you. And can you believe that we actually got this photo when you were in training? But you didn't always want to run the association of the American Association of Advertising Agencies. You actually wanted to be an interpreter at the UN. You took 4 years of Russian, 4 years of Latin, several years of French and Spanish to pursue that. And then what happened?
I don't know, honestly. Life got in the way, life changed, and I ended up deciding that it was the 70s after all. I decided that I was going to be a social worker and save the world. So I was pursuing my MSW, trying to put myself through school. I was miserable. And my mother called me and said, listen, I know you're not happy doing what you're doing. There's this job in my hometown. It doesn't require any experience. They just want somebody with a bachelor's degree. And, you could apply for it. It's a marketing coordinator job. So I applied for the job, got the job. And this was a company that was trying to compete with, okay, now I'm really going to date myself, Maxell and TDK in the blank tape space. And after about 2 years of trying to compete with those two behemoths, it failed. And my boss at the time, who was an ex-J. Walter guy, said, I think you'd really like the agency business. I think you ought to look into that. And so I wasn't ready to go to New York because I'm from a really tiny town in Pennsylvania. And I looked in Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and I ended up getting a job at Donor in Baltimore, which at the time was a pretty big agency. And it just took off from there. And I never looked back. I loved every minute of advertising ever since.
So you became an advertising executive to save the world. So, forget about United Nations, translators, social workers. You decided to do it through advertising, of course. Now, I'm going to date myself too, which is I remember TDK tapes too. And I even remember a jingle, and I have no idea whether this was a South African campaign for TDK or an American one that came to South Africa. And I'm going to embarrass myself by singing it. It went something like this. This may be the savant side of me, but it went something like, TDK does amazing things. TDK does amazing things. TDK does amazing things to my system, or something. I think.
I don't remember that one. I mean, my most vivid memory of any of the blank tape advertising was is it Live or is it Memorex? And the company that I worked for was called, the brand was Loran, Loran. And the housing they had been an OEM supplier to the recording industry for years. But the housing of this particular blank tape was made out of Lexan, which is the same material that they make bank teller windows out of. They're bulletproof. And their whole thing was you could leave it on the dashboard of your car and it wouldn't melt in the heat and it wouldn't crack in the cold. But the cost to make it was so much higher than what Maxell, TDK, and Memorex could put it out there that nobody wanted to buy it. They didn't care that much about whether their tape melted on the dashboard or not, apparently.
Wow, I mean, that's, able to stop a speeding bullet,
with your tape.
With your tape or your teeth. So we've got some comments. Tom said, I love that Nancy took Latin as a prep for the UN. I can imagine walking around looking for the Roman delegation. And Mr. Jeffrey Wallman says, I have boxes of tapes and no cassette player. That is true. That is true. I mean, I recently used one of those legacy box services to get a couple of cassette tapes digitized. So a blast from the past. But here, let's talk about the current Nancy Hill, which is, you might be shocked to learn that actually, if this advertising and media thing doesn't work out, there's always knitting. You are an avid knitter. And in fact, your handle on Instagram is Knitter Nancy. I love it.
It's Knitter Nancy that's misspelled. It's KNITTERKNANCY. But yes, it's, my mother was a big knitter growing up and I always resisted it. And about 4 years ago, I took it up and there's been no looking back ever since. And if you could see the other side of this room, it's like nothing but my stash of yarn. So knitters have stashes all over the place, and this whole other side of my office is my yarn stash.
I'm going to take a tremendous umbrage and offense at you saying it was misspelled. It doesn't look misspelled to me at all.
Now it's back up with the right one. You were missing that second K.
But I love it. There's the copyright in you. Knitter Nancy. I love it.
There you go.
There is something that kind of screams out to me as someone who's, been involved in the digital and the social media space, which is what I call authentic voice. And I love the fact that you're not just, that you have a different side of you, same person, but a different side of you dedicated to Instagram, as opposed to let me be all work and all business and very one-dimensional across all these different platforms. This is exactly what brands should be doing. They should be using each platform to express or bring to life a different dimension of their personality and their value proposition.
Well, for me personally, the visual element of Instagram obviously lends itself to the sharing of the knitting craft amongst that community, which is a huge community, by the way. And on Instagram, it's a very, very large and vocal community. So I use that for that part of me. And Facebook tends to be for friends and family, and LinkedIn obviously for business, and Twitter I use mostly for business. Simply because I think it's a great way to get out there and make a point and offer your point of view in the ad Twitter universe, if you will.
Well, enough about your fantastic, colorful dimensions. Let's get into advertising, shall we? And let's get into this. I mean, you really are a visionary. And I went back and I looked into the archives and I found this article. This was in 2016. 4A's CEO Nancy Hill takes on gender equality and diversity in advertising. When it wasn't in vogue, when it wasn't current, when it wasn't whatever, where the puck was focused, this is where the puck was heading to. I would love for you to talk about your time running the 4As. What moment, perhaps, at what moment you felt the need to take, to step it up and to be an advocate on behalf of gender equality and diversity. And then we'll go to part 3. And if you need reminding, I'll bring you back to it, which is how far have we come now looking at 2021, or how far do we still yet have to travel in order to get to what you hoped we would get to in 2016?
It's always an interesting question as to when that moment was. But I would say it was actually right when the announcement went out that I was going to be taking on the role of the CEO of the 4As. Every single reporter wanted to make me getting that job about the fact that I was a woman. And I thought, and so did the board, obviously, that I brought a unique set of skill sets and background to that job that had never been there before. And that, oh, by the way, I happened to be a female. I had worked all over the country. I'd worked in every manner and size of agencies. I had all kinds of experience with tech platforms, with what was then social media platforms that nobody else had had before in that role. And every reporter wanted to start with, you got the job because you're a female. I was like, no, I got the job because I'm highly qualified and I happen to be a female. And so from that moment on, I had to fight and push back against that. But it even became more obvious to me when I started thinking about, I started in February of 2008, and we were getting ready for that summer's class of the MAPE interns. And for those of you who aren't familiar, the 4As has a program that's been in place for almost 50 years now called the Multicultural Advertising Internship Program. Close to 2,500 or more people have gone through that program in all of those years. And as we were getting ready to welcome that summer's class, I looked on the wall outside of our boardroom, and there were pictures on that wall of my 8 predecessors, as well as the 40 some people who had had the role of chairman of the board. So there are over 50 people on that wall. Every single person on that wall was white, and there were 2 females. One was Shelley Lazarus, and the other one was Charlotte Beers. That's it. Out of all those 50 people who are deemed to be successful, the highest pinnacles in advertising of either the CEO of the 4As or the chairman of the board of the 4As. And yet we would bring in over 100 kids every summer to give them orientation who didn't look like anything on that wall, and say to them, this is what success looks like in advertising. I took the wall down. We digitized all the photos, so we had them for the archives. But I had to look, everything we did and everything that we said, I tried to do with the lens of, what is this going to look like to somebody who doesn't look like me, or somebody who doesn't look like most of the rest of the people at the top of the industry? How do I make them feel like they belong and that they can be successful?
I mean, I love the story, and I love how it almost, it wasn't even, it was symbolic, but it was actually a physical act, which is to take down the photos. I almost see that as this great phrase that is almost like this metaphor, right? Take down the photos. You've got to change the appearance in order to manifest a change in appearance, I guess, is the best way.
That's right.
It's the classic example of going into the boardroom of the one of the clients of one of these large agencies, and typically it's the oil painting of the founder who has Esquire or the Third, and they're an old dead white guy, and the mahogany, everything is so reminiscent of the way things were as opposed to the way things are, the way that things should be. And maybe the first step is I love it. It's, take down the oil painting, digitize it, and you know what, make it into an NFT if you like, great. that'll make it current for 2021. It's a great story. But Nancy, now when we look at 2021, there has been so much change, from the Women's March through Black Lives Matter. It seems like, as Victor Hugo would have said, there is nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. There is nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. And yet, where are we as an industry in terms of the progress that we've made since that article that I showed earlier?
We still have a long way to go. We've made some really monumental steps, I think, but I think that it's not yet something that's culture shifting inside the agencies, for lack of a better way of describing it. It's so ingrained in our history, the way that we go about hiring, the way we think about making sure that we're including people once they get inside an agency. And until we make that total shift and that total commitment, I don't think that it's going to change as fast as we would like it to. Yes, I think we've made some pretty good strides with regard to women at the top. Several of the top New York offices of the major holding company agencies are being run by women now, which is a big step forward. Many other agencies are being run by women, and it's also very seldom that you see now when an agency is being founded that it's for white guys, which used to be the norm. I think everybody recognizes now that you can't succeed, not just you can't go out there because it doesn't look good, but you can't succeed unless you have diversity in the ranks of the most senior people at the agency. And as we start to get more and more diverse in the senior ranks, I think it will start to permeate the culture of the agencies. But until that happens in a more complete way, we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's this idea of it doesn't just look good, it does good. We've always heard that phrase, which is it's not just common sense, it's good business sense, or it's not just good business sense, it's common sense. The two things work together really well. And on so many cascading levels, right? From what the boardroom looks like in terms of representation to the C-suite, and eventually cascading to the advertising agency, which is if you are ultimately feeding or fulfilling or delivering against a target audience that is diverse, it just stands to reason that everyone working on that business should at least represent or mirror that same diversity, ceteris paribus, all things being equal.
Right. Well, the other thing that's happened, I would love to believe that people in the last year and a half to 2 years, maybe even 5 years, started making these changes because they felt like it was the right thing to do and the right thing for business. But honestly, I'd say that in the last year, what I've seen more and more of is in new business with the RFPs that clients are asking, what are your efforts on diversity, equity, and inclusion? We want to see your numbers. We want to know that the team that's going to be working on this business is a diversely representative team. And once the clients started pushing, the agencies did not have a choice, which is exactly what we always said would happen, that the clients, the advertisers had a role to play in this. Not to say that they're perfect in their ranks either, but they at least know now to ask that question of the agencies up front. So we're seeing that more and more in new business, and I'd say it really got stepped up in the last year.
Do you think it's possible that in one of those RFPs, the agency would say, absolutely, and we're going to ask the same question of you and make sure that you represent that same, that check those same boxes? Or is that a bit of a pipe dream?
Well, it would be lovely. And I certainly encourage my clients, my agency clients, to interview the clients as much as the clients are interviewing them. I haven't specifically told them to ask that question, but I think I'm going to start doing that.
Nice. Well, let's put it this way. If they get the business you can take the credit, and if they don't, you can tell them to complain back to me. So it's a win-win for you, Nancy.
Yeah, there you go.
We've got a few comments coming in. Adam John says, yes, CEO tears down the wall barriers to diversity. And David Libby says, Mr. Gorbachev, take down that mahogany oil painting as well. By the way, Glenn asks, did you get to Ecuador to do teaching and volunteer work?
I did actually. I had a house. I owned a house there before my husband and I got married. But then collectively, we had the house in Ecuador for 12 years. And originally, I got involved down there because of a good friend of mine. Some of you may remember Bonnie Lunt, who was a longtime recruiter in the industry, but she was also a very close friend of mine. Asked me if I would donate money to a project that she was trying to fund to build a school in the Andes in a rural part of Ecuador. And I said, sure, I can write a check, but I'd really like to see it up close and personal. So I went with her. That was in the summer of, I think, 2005 or 6. And by the time I got back, I had put a down payment to build a house down there. And I enjoyed having that house for 12 years. We built a total of 8 schools. And I think we sent something like 2,000 kids through primary school, because you have to pay for uniforms and school lunches and all that other stuff. So it was an incredible experience.
I mean, it's incredible. I am, I'm in awe, really, of how you've made a difference. One of my kids, at least one of my kids, has been down to Ecuador, I think Quito, as part of Builders Beyond Borders, to build classrooms as well. So fantastic. They could have said hi.
We were about an hour and a half north of Quito, up in the Andes is where we were.
Amazing. Nancy, I want to come back to this fierce and ongoing commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and I want to bring up another often overlooked aspect, which is ageism. And and it seems sometimes that it's as a white male myself, I now realize, and I'm like 0 for 3. I'm a 50-year-old white male, so it's like 3 strikes you're out. But in all seriousness, it must be tough to be a person of color. It must be tough to be a woman. It must be tough to be north of 50 as well. And we need to fight, all of us, on behalf of everyone, to have an equal say and an equal opportunity to be represented and to have their talents represented. And so you said something in the briefing document that I thought was quite fascinating. You said women over a certain age are having a great time right now, both personally and professionally, and you have some thoughts on why. So I love this position, because the position says, wait a second, maybe things aren't or maybe there is a different flip or different perspective to think about women over the age of 50. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and why you think this is the case.
Well, I'll start with, I'm proudly 63 years old. So, I don't ever try to hide that. For me, for most of my friends, for most of the women of my generation, and possibly the one right behind us, I think you get to a point in your career where the bullshit meter goes off, and you just say, listen, I'm not putting up with the bullshit anymore. I'm going to be authentically who I am. I'm going to say what I really feel. And maybe that's partly that our generation never felt like we could do that before. But I think that once you start to take the glasses off that sort of tinted your view of the world, and you know who you are and you feel strong in your point of view, it puts your head in a completely different space. That is not to say that there isn't ageism in the industry, because I do believe there is. And I'm not going to let anybody off the hook by saying what I'm about to say, which is part of the issue is that we have a topsy-turvy compensation model with our clients, and consequently with our employees. And that as people go up the pay scale, which goes parallel with their age, they tend to price themselves out of the market. So whenever there's a downturn, and this has happened pretty much every 10 years for as long as I've been in the business, the people with the highest mid-level salaries, or the next level up, are the people who get laid off. And then it's almost impossible for them to get back into the market, certainly at the salary that they were making. That's no excuse for what happens in terms of people aging out or pricing out. We have to look at how we make not only the environment that we work in inclusive, but the way we get paid by our clients and the way we in turn pay our employees. And I think until we start taking a really solid look at that, it's going to be a hard thing to get over, because we don't get paid for the quality of the work that we deliver. We get paid for FTEs and hourly rates that don't equate to what somebody has actually earned in having 35 years experience.
I had a thought as I was listening to you, and I'll come back to that in a second. Glenn says 63 is the new 40, only freer, and you get to call shit when needed. I had to just use my little self-censor. What I meant was bullshit. And he adds, you are telling the truth. I made the most money when I was in my 30s and have never matched that ever again. Jeffrey says he's 63 next month and he feels like 36 as well. And Tom says, when we don't embrace diversity, inclusivity, and gender equality, we actually take on part of the responsibility for the world's not being nearly as good as it could be for us all. Nancy, a question for you, which is this concept of aging out. It just struck me that it's a two-way street, and I think even when it comes to salary expectations, certainly there are things that we could do, and I should just say employees could do, to make sure that they don't necessarily age out. And then, of course, there are things that employers could do as well, especially with respect to mentoring and reinventing the role. Would you agree with the statement that really it is a two-way street? And if so, what is one thing that perhaps workers could do to be more in control of their own destiny and fate, as opposed to being handed, that kind of future?
It is a two-way street. Again, I don't want to give anybody the pass on making sure that employees are taken care of as they go up in age and obviously go up in experience. Let's start with the responsibility of the employee. Certainly, you have to keep current on the industry, your skill set, what you can bring to the table. There's no question about that. When in 2008, 2009, when we had and by the way, I took over the 4As in 2008, at the beginning of 2008. Think about that timing. By the end of 2008, beginning of 2009, we were at the time going into one of the worst recessions in the industry that we had ever seen. So a whole bunch of my peers got laid off at that moment in time. And many of them came to see me to see if I could help. And I was certainly happy to sit down with everybody and talk through what was going on. And remember, this is New York City. So when I use these salaries, they're higher than probably the rest of the country. But many of these people would come in my office and the conversation would go something like this. Well, you probably know I've been let go from fill in the blank, big agency. And so now I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. Okay. So how are your digital skills? But again, back in 2008, 2009. Well, I've really been working on packaged goods most of my career, so I haven't really had to be involved in that. Okay. So have you thought about, do you need to stay in New York City? Oh yeah, absolutely have to stay in New York City. And what have you thought about taking a cut in salary? Oh no, our whole lives are set up and revolve around the fact that I make $350,000 a year so I can put my kids through private school. I heard this conversation over and over and over again, and I sat there listening to these people who were, by the way, in their early 50s. And I said, A, shame on you for not keeping up on your digital skills. Did you not see that this was coming? And B, I think you're going to have to rethink this $350,000 a year job, because I don't think they're going to come back anytime soon. So I saw that happening. But at the same time, during that period, there was a guy I knew who would have qualified in all of those criteria that I just talked about, recognized he did not have the digital skill set that he needed to remarket himself. So he got a hold of one of the big trade associations that represented the digital side of the equation, offered to work for them for next to nothing for a year so that he could learn as much as he possibly could. After that year, they hired him full time. He stayed another 3 or 4 years, and he's now the CEO of one of the large digital measurement companies. So I give him all kinds of kudos and credit for recognizing what he didn't know and what he needed to do to be able to be marketable again. So I do think that there is some responsibility of the employee to stay current. On the other hand, I think it's the employer's responsibility to help them know about what they could be doing to keep themselves marketable. And here are some tools that we as the employer can provide for you. And we're willing to help you get the training that you need to stay in the fore. By the way, it's going to make you better at your job for our clients.
You know, you said so many amazing thoughts there. And it actually, by the way, Leslie says, great that you asked about digital skills. It makes me think about my conversation with Rashad, where he, it was either Rashad or Seth. Let's just say it was both of them. It was actually Seth Godin, but Rashad is still, I still love the man to pieces.
Oh, so do I.
He is my favorite. But Seth actually said, if you think that you have less options and the doors are, and you have less doors that are open, the older you get, you're not thinking about it correctly. And he totally flipped it on its head and said, you actually don't have less choice. You have more choice because of your experience, because of your wisdom, and because of your ability to make smart decisions. And I love that. And it actually brings up the quote that I have for you today, Nancy, which is, the good thing about being old is not being young. Very, very profound, I suppose. And this comes from Stephen Richards. In the time that we have left, I would love to just ask you one thought, because you understand the business so well. In this new reality of working from home, of hybrid workplaces, this is a business, the advertising business, that is all about creativity, or at least it's a huge part of it. Creativity and the power of the idea and the power of collaboration, brainstorming. What happens to creativity in a world where there is a fair amount of virtual collaboration and remote working / working from home?
Much has been said about this, so I don't want to repeat anything that anybody else has said, but I always like to think about periods in history when we've had great renaissances, and they were not connected the way that we're connected. They, many times, if you think about the great painters and the great composers, they went into their own place and designed their own things all by themselves. And I'm not advocating for that. But what I'm saying is that I think that the way we have lived for the last 18 months has led us to understand that we can be very connected and very collaborative in this environment. Is it the same way that we were collaborative before? No. Do I think that we need to get back to some sort of hybrid model of coming together and then working alone and coming together and working alone? Possibly. I think it's too soon to tell what this is all going to play itself out to look like. But I do know that a lot of creative things have happened in the last 18 months. When you look at the way that agencies have had to transform themselves to work with their clients. And by the way, all of my agency clients have come out of 2020 stronger than they went in. They all feel like, in some ways, having to reinvent themselves, not only to get new business, but for their own peace of mind and their own way of working with their employees was a good thing. Not that anybody wishes this on anybody else, but it forced them to think about things that they were maybe thinking about, but not acting on.
I love that little autocorrect.
Sorry.
That was a Nancy Hill autocorrect. That was awesome. And, I give you extra points for that as well. Nancy, I've so loved our time together. And, it really makes me what I take away from this is for people to always remember that the buck stops with them, that we are in control of our own destiny, that we can influence absolutely what the future holds, whether it is for ourselves, our brands, the companies we work for. Leslie Laredo says lifelong learning and long life learning, which I think is a great way to summarize it. I would love people to know how they can stay connected to you. And I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about your company now, and some of the things that you're focused on.
So my company is called Media Sherpas because at the time that I formed the LLC, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to be doing in terms of my consultancy or what it was going to look like. I'd say 75% of my business is working directly with independent agencies to help them with virtually anything that they might be trying to take on. I always tell them, you have to think about me as somebody who's sort of like a personal trainer for agencies. You know, when you're trying to get in shape, you know what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to eat right. You're supposed to exercise, all those things. But many times we just don't do it. I'm going to tell you what I think you need to do. You may not like my advice, but I've seen around more corners than most people. And I know what's waiting for you around that corner. Because I either made a mistake or I did the right thing. And I can predict pretty much what's going to happen as you start to go around that corner. So that's what people hire me to do. And it ranges from new business to operations to organizational structure to you name it.
Wonderful. Well, Tom Morris says this has been such a good session. And Adam John says accountability, 100% accountable for how you react to the circumstances you're in. All I have to say besides thanking you, Nancy, is maybe it should say on your business card, Nancy Hill, personal trainer to advertising agencies and wannabe knitters as well. You know, you'll get them into shape. You'll make sure that they don't pull any muscles in terms of their knitting. But ultimately, I think the tapestry that we weave is a multi-dimensional, multicolored, multi-faceted tapestry of diversity. And those seeds that you planted all those years back hopefully will continue to grow and influence the business and how we move forward. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Oh, you're so welcome, Joseph. Thank you for having me.
I've got to get a little bit better at those transitions. That I should have mentioned was actually pre-recorded earlier today. Maybe I did mention that at 12 noon. And regulars on the show, as well as Jaffe coin holders, can view and participate, comment, ask questions live. Well, now it's time to get to our very, very famous creator performance. And I'm talking about Stevie Meyer, who is a spoken word artist. Now, when I asked her for a brief bio, she very kindly gave me a brief bio. And her bio was Stevie Meyer is a spoken word artist. Her favorite snack are donuts. So we're going to have to bring her aboard. Stevie, you love donuts.
I do. Hi. Yes, I love donuts. I love donuts.
I mean, I tried to do some original photoshopping, but all I could do is just show you a donut. Yeah.
So yummy. So yummy.
So yummy. Are you going to be able to focus? We'll take it.
You know, it's a good thought. Okay, thank you.
I love donuts too, but maybe not as much as you do. Stevie, we're very excited to have you come in. It's been, since I relaunched the show, just the most incredible opportunity to listen and hear and view just what I think is just incredible talent. You are a spoken word artist. Talk a little bit about what is a spoken word artist, and has it become a little bit more, has it mainstreamed of late, or is this just something that's really been there and just perhaps has become a little bit more visible to the rest of the world? Perhaps you could say since the inauguration.
Spoken word has always been around. It is a form of poetry from the Harlem Renaissance up until present day. in the media, those that have made it more mainstream is the Poetry Jam. There was also for youth, there was a HBO special on Brave New Voices, where you became exposed to young poets all over the world. So I
Well,
don't believe it's been mainstream. It's always been around. But the inauguration definitely has brought it more so to the forefront for sure. Definitely.
And I have to tell you, I mean, I've heard so many talented spoken word artists in Clubhouse. It's just been, I mean, it's been spectacular. I get goosebumps every time, and I'm sure I'm going to get again tonight. You are going to be performing 2 spoken word pieces, both untitled. So I'm going to let you take it away with the first one, and then I will, hide my non-famous head and let you do your thing, and then I'll be back in between and just take it away.
Okay, thank you. She be God and destroyer, half piped into a frolicking forever looped in the moist of her poignancy that holds men accountable. And women too. She can tell you, hey, I am wrong, and mean it. Sometimes that is more honest than saying I am sorry. You are never really sorry. You're an amalgamation of impossible formulas all coming together to give you breath. How can something like that call itself sorry? It is this constant labeling and shelving emotions away that we are addicted to. Figure it out next year, next minute. Maybe a dance with a leopard and a twerking tree with fruit that grows eyes out of its seeds above a laughing stop sign, 2 hexagons to say stop. She can and will love you into a new beginning. But the honesty here is falling not in love, though you will. And we'll do that too, but the fall after the face plant into what you cannot be anymore. What your spirit won't ever again require. This is when the honesty happens, when you call baby like out your flesh and sing an elbowed awakening. She is star spangled melanin. Spiritually, the womb is life. However, your vagina can't heal a broken heart. It does not vibrate in the heart chakra to do so. The womb is life. But the womb don't got nothing for your heart. So excuse me if my breath stinks. Does it smell like death? Remind you of the time you thought 2 weeks old leftovers were still fresh. Must run in your lineage because your ancestors were able to stomach having my people sit in their shit. Perhaps they had to eat it. So trust me when I call you on your BS. You won't be able to ride this. It's now DNA encrypted. You are what you eat, they say. Fed us sour lies for generations until our bodies became immune to it, created its own antibodies. We now on a different brainwave. The way my people speak to me when their hands braid. So now you tend to catch a glimpse of protection on our insides while still getting a sunburn while we glisten and glow because we are sunflower seeds. But you can't see our eyes unless our head is bent. Used as test dummies for your vaccines. History has consistently served me nothing but spice to get all choked up every time my tongue has to remember the ones cut off, so I stay away from that. But when it seems as if that's all that's left, I use my mama concoctions. When life gives you lemons, makes lemonade. Serve your glass on full. Mess up your digestive system from this sour, bitter truth. You dig? You can't. We stay fly as close to God as possible, our higher selves, the eyes of the soul to the window, what we make sure we get out. Not today. Death steer. You want to know all our secrets, but bud, you'll never be able to decipher what we taste like because we are the secret ingredient to life.
I mean, it was amazing, and as I was watching you, I always, by the way, I feel like a thief. Even though people are watching this now, I just feel like how lucky am I to, to have this one-on-one time because it does feel very intimate. The time I listen to you, and I think even though it's spoken word, it is very, very musical. the cadence, the intonation, there's lilting, the voice changes so much. It is beautiful and melodious.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you just about that piece, and why is it untitled? Is it untitled because it still needs to find its name? Is that intentional?
Yes, so a lot of my pieces are untitled, mostly because I just write from where I feel, where I am in the moment. And I don't want to title it, more so to give the audience an idea of what to expect. So I feel if you hear a piece and it says to you life, that can be the piece for the poem for you. So it's very hard for me to title my pieces. If I do have a title piece, it is because that name for that piece is consistent in telling me, hey, this is my name.
And I love it. It's a series of untitled works of art. So the second piece, of course, if I had to ask you to give it a name, you'd say, well, you're not paying attention, Joseph. It's untitled. So I'm going to let you. Do you want to set it up, or do you just want to go straight into it?
I'll just go straight into it.
All right, go for it. Take it away.
Thank you. I still smile, though you can't see the broken fragments of a glass mirror before you. It seems as if life has only presented itself to me in incomplete puzzles, one incomplete after the other. I'm still waiting to unwrap my gift of life with a big red bow. Red to represent the blood that flows through the chamber of my heart, but actually has red that represents powers in the roses. The one that smell like beauty. I still smile because they say it keeps the wrinkles away. Frowning causes lifelines, and if I release this upside down frown, you will see through me. And you know what they say, don't look in a broken mirror, it causes bad luck. And I wouldn't want you trapped here, because you may see me, you may find your missing puzzle piece through me and try to complete me with, what's wrong? How are you today? So I smile, so your eyes only catch a glimpse of what the definition of a smile is. My smile blocks you from seeing through my eyes. The eyes are the window to the soul, they say, but my smile causes a squint. So all of me is not exposed. Today I smile, tomorrow I smile, next week, next month, next year I'll smile. All she ever did was smile. And now having to say goodbye, looking at her laying here, I finally see her. You thought you were going to be able to jump on my back. Thought that you were going to hold me down. Thought that you would be able to spill lies on me, try to mess up my reputation. But I got something for you. Because I'll smile. Knowing that behind my eyes, I got the truth. I smile. Knowing that my tongue speaks power to heal souls that are broken. I smile. Carrying every single one of them on my back. So when I say yes and you try to tell me no, I still smile. There is power in a smile. You may catch tears as crusted waters trying to dry up in my rivers, but I still give life because I smile. And as long as I got a tongue, these words will carry power. So I smile, you smile, we smile. We'll forever smile. Thank you. You are on mute.
Yeah, I am, because you know what? I did not want to interrupt that beautiful that beautiful performance at all. But now I'm definitely not on mute when I do. There is so much emotion in your work and in your performance, and it's just it's incredible. And I just wonder, like, when you perform, are you able to go through transitions of emotions in terms of how you feel leading up to a piece, and then you perform it with so much heart, and then be able to get back to a different smile as well. Do you, is it hard to just transition like that?
Honestly, it is, especially when you know that you are going to be sharing your work. So I like to sit with my pieces and see, what piece wants to be spoken, which one do I feel needs to be heard. Hearing your interview with Nancy Hill, I took in all of that, the introductions, and then the pieces will just say, hey, pick me. A lot of times when I am in those pieces, I zone out. So my vision does become blurred. I can't see anything because I am really in my pieces. I never know what's going to come out of me. I don't know. I've heard a lot about the way my voice changes. Again, I don't know how it happens or why, but I believe it to be the pieces. I find that being a spoken word artist, I am my full self, the most free. So I never know what's going to happen until I open my mouth.
And when you do, just absolute magnificence comes out. Stevie Meyer, thank you for coming in. Catherine Smith says, "Love it, Stevie."
Thank you so much for having me.
And lots of applause. If you want to find out more about Stevie Meyer, you can follow her on Instagram. Join her. In fact, not even in Clubhouse, but on June 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern on Clubhouse under the Fourth Period Poetry Club, you're going to be doing an audio production of Up Against It All, A Poet's Tell. I certainly will try and make it if I can. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this production?
Yes. Oh man, I'm so super excited about it. This will be my first full audio production. I've worked with some amazing artists, amazing vocalists, amazing music producers to help bring this vision to life. And it will basically consist of, I believe that artists, the best way I can phrase this is we're magical. We have a way of being able to present life through I don't want to call it entertainment, but through an inspiring form, through good, through bad, whether it be our own struggles or the struggles of others. Arts is just so important to me. It's music. It's the vibe of the words. It's when life says hello or life says goodbye, being able to sit with something that brings you comfort. So a poet's tale is poetry through life, to inspire, to heal, to say hello to yourself, for you to be able to say hello to others. So I'm really excited about it.
I tell you, who wants to say hello to you is you're getting a little bit of love from KSG that says, "My baby sister, I love you."
Hi.
You are truly, truly amazing. Well, please go and support Stevie Meyer in everything she does. And if you want to send her a tip via Cash App, this is how you can do it. Most importantly, if you're around June 10th, I know that I'm doing a show at 9. So there's no excuse for me unless I forget, and I'm forgetful. But I'm going to try and pop in and support you and show you some love.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you so much coming in. And we always end the show with Chuck Norris, of all people, who comes in and tells us whether our guest did a good job or not. And I have a feeling this one's a bit of a no-brainer.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
Ow.
There's a shocker.
Thank you.
I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.